Today's topic and second part of the longevity jigsaw is fasting. Fasting is considered to be a cultural or religious ritual, and majority of people don't understand this powerful practice. It is confused with starvation, but fasting has nothing in common. Withholding of food for spiritual, health, or other reasons is called fasting, whereas on other hand, starvation is unavailability of food. Fasting brings health benefits to the body, while starvation causes malnutrition or even severe organ damage. Let's look at the brief history of fasting. Fasting is one of the most ancient and widespread healing traditions in the world. It is ingrained into human heritage and as old as mankind itself. Humans, like most animals, don't feel like eating when they become sick. In certain ailments, cutting down food intake and rest helps in recovery. The ancient Greeks believed that medical treatment could be observed from nature and fasting improved cognitive abilities. We can put this to a test by eating a big meal and try to perform a task that requires concentration. We know it will be very hard, as full stomach will make us sleepy. Blood is shunted to our digestive system to deal with the food instead of our brain. Fasting for spiritual purposes is widely practiced and remain part of virtually every major religion in the world. The practice of fasting developed independently among different religions and cultures, not as something that was harmful, but something that was deeply, intrinsically beneficial to the human body and spirit. Different cultures and religions follow different patterns of fasting. There are several days of fasting across the year in Judaism and Hinduism. Buddhist monks fast from noon to next morning. Greek Orthodox Christians may follow various fasts over 180 days of the year. Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset, and the fasting in Islam is not limited to the holy month of Ramadan. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, encouraged fasting by practicing on Mondays and Thursdays of every week, and also certain days of other months of the year besides Ramadan. Ramadan is the best studied of the fasting period. It differs from many fasting protocols in that fluids are also forbidden. This gives complete rest to the digestive system. In addition to fasting, there is a period of mild dehydration, especially if the fasting period falls during summer months. It is around 20 hours for those who live near the Arctic Circle. It is understandable to fast for religious reasons. But why do people fast for health reasons? Is there any evidence that fasting is good for our health? This is our topic for today. To fully comprehend the effects of fasting on human body, we would need to understand what happens in presence and absence of food. We can call it the time we eat is the eating period, and the time to avoid eating is the fasting period. When we eat, our pancreas starts producing insulin that takes glucose into our tissues to be used for energy. Food energy is calculated in calories, and consuming excess calories means we are eating more than our body burns off in a day. Some of these calories are consumed by the autonomic processes such as breathing, digestion, and heartbeat, etc. Rest of the calories are sitting there waiting for us to take action. As a result of physical activity like walking, exercising, gardening, and household chores, we burn calories. If we don't do enough movement to get rid of all the calories, excess glucose is stored as glycogen in the liver. These glycogen stores last for almost 24 hours. Once the glycogen stores are full, the body stores excess calories from carbohydrates and proteins as fat. Adipose cells store the extra calories in the form of a fatty acid called triglycerides. Everyone has a different number of adipose cells, but it is the size of the cells that matters. Adipose tissues is commonly known as body fat. It is found all over the body. It can be found under the skin, called subcutaneous fat, packed around the internal organs called visceral fat, and between the muscles. Men tend to store more visceral fat around internal organs, leading to obesity around the middle of their abdomen. However, women tend to store more subcutaneous fat that is under the skin of lower part of the body. This happens due to male and female hormones produced in the body. Adipose tissues can have severe health implications. More commonly, too much adipose tissues leads to obesity, mainly from too much visceral fat. Obesity leads to a number of serious health problems like type 2 diabetes and hypertension. These conditions increase risk of heart disease and stroke. So we have two choices, either consume less calories or do more movement to burn these off for the sake of a healthy body. Now look at the flip side of the coin, fasting period. The glycogen stores last for roughly 24 hours, but when we don't eat anything for next 6 to 24 hours, insulin levels start to fall and breakdown of glycogen begins. That releases stored glucose for energy. In the fasting state of 1 to 2 days, a process begins in the liver called gluconeogenesis. This process produces new glucose from amino acids. In non-diabetic people, glucose levels fall but stay within the normal range. The next stage is called ketosis. This starts after 2 to 3 days during the fasting period. Continuous low levels of insulin during fasting stimulate lipolysis, the breakdown of fat for energy. Triglycerides, the storage form of fat, is broken into the glycerol backbone and 3 fatty acid chains. Glycerol is used for gluconeogenesis. Fatty acids may be used directly for energy by many tissues in the body, but not the brain. Ketone bodies capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier are produced from fatty acids for use by the brain. After 4 days of fasting, approximately 75% of the energy used by the brain is provided by ketones. In healthy humans, the body is continually making a small number of ketones to be used by the body for energy. Even overnight while sleeping, the level of ketone bodies in the blood increases. The two major types of ketones produced are beta-hydroxyl butyrate and acetoacetate, which can increase 70 times during fasting. After 5 days of fasting, high levels of growth hormone maintain muscle mass and lean tissues. The energy for maintenance of metabolism is almost entirely met by the use of free fatty acids and ketones. Increased norepinephrine levels prevent the decrease in metabolic rate. The human body has well-developed mechanisms for dealing with periods of low food availability. As a bottom line, the process is to switch from burning glucose, that is short-term, to burning fat, that's long-term. Fat is simply the body's stored food energy. In times of low food availability, stored food is naturally released to fill the void. The body does not burn muscle in an effort to feed itself until all the fat stores are used. So we have come to a conclusion that fasting helps burning fat and excess glucose from the body. This is one of the many benefits of fasting. Another major benefit is stem cell regeneration. This is more exciting bit. Stem cells are the body's raw materials. Blood cells, brain cells, heart muscle cells, and bone cells are made from the stem cells. No other cell in the body has the natural ability to generate new cell types. During fasting, the system tries to save energy. And one of the things it can do to save energy is to recycle a lot of immune system cells that are not needed, especially those that may be damaged. Prolonged fasting forces the body to use stores of glucose, fat, and ketones, but it is also breaks down a significant portion of white blood cells. This depletion of white blood cells induces changes that trigger stem cell-based regeneration of new immune system cells. According to a study, prolonged fasting also lowered levels of IGF-1, a growth factor hormone that is linked to aging, tumor progression, and cancer risk. So if you're convinced that fasting is good for you and interested to know the types of fasting, You need to remember that fasting is defined as the voluntary act of withholding food for a specific period of time. It has no standard duration. Fasting can range from 12 hours to 3 months. You can fast once a week or even once a month or once a year. Intermittent fasting involves fasting for shorter period of time on a regular basis. Shorter fasts are generally done more frequently. Longer fasts are typically 24 hours to 36 hours, done 2 to 3 times a week. There are certain patterns of fasting you can follow. First one is 12 hours fasting. Divide the 24-hour period in half. 12 hours eating window and 12 hours of fasting. The second pattern is 16-hour fasting. Divide the 24-hour period in 16 and 8 hours windows. 8-hour eating window and 16 hours of fasting. The third is 20 hours fasting. 4 hours to eat and rest of 20 hours for fasting. The fourth pattern is 24-hour fast. Take one meal at same time every day. Then the next pattern is 2 days a week fasting. 24-hour fast for 2 days and eat normally for the rest of the 5 days. Then you can do alternative day fasting. Like the name suggests, fast on alternative days rather than 2 days a week. Finally, you could do 36-hour fasting. Eat a meal at fixed time on day 1 and fast on day 2 without any food. Eat breakfast on day 3 at the same time you had your evening meal on day 1. Let's say you had your single meal at 8 p.m. on day 1. You can eat your breakfast 8 a.m. on day 3. Although fasting has lots of health benefits, but practicing is not easy, especially if you are not used to it. There are some misconceptions that need addressing. For example, fasting puts you in starvation mode. If that's the case, human race would have ceased to exist, as the early humans survived on hunting with days without food. Fasting will overwhelm you with hunger. If you speak to someone who fasts due to health or spiritual reasons, they will tell you that they don't feel overwhelmed with hunger. Majority of them don't feel tempted even someone is eating in front of them. They prepare their meals to break the fast without any problem. And fasting teaches discipline to avoid temptations, although food is right there in their access. Then fasting causes overeating when you resume eating. Well, fasting helps control amount of food someone consumes, but it depends upon individual how disciplined they are. Fasting will make you lose muscle mass. We have discussed this earlier that body uses sugar as fuel. When sugar level goes down, it uses body fat to feed itself. Until all the body fat is not consumed, it doesn't break down muscles. So no muscles are lost until we have fat in the body. I don't think anyone would fast to that extent that they will start losing their muscle mass. Fasting deprives the body of nutrients. Again, this is purely based on assumptions. Fasting doesn't deprive the body of essential nutrients unless someone fasts for a very long period of time. If someone is deficient in vitamins or minerals, they can do alternative day fasting or take multivitamins. Then fasting causes hypoglycemia. It may be a concern for diabetic patients, but it doesn't happen in healthy people. In fact, low blood sugar levels help in weight loss. The brain needs glucose to function. Yes, this is true. That brain needs fuel to function. After 24 hours, blood glucose level depletes and human brain uses ketones to function. Our intelligent bodies move from short-term food storage, that is burning the glycogen, to long-term storage, that is fat, automatically without any issues. Some people say fasting is insane idea and there are other ways to stay healthy. Well, the health benefits of fasting are matchless. No drug or lifestyle will give the benefits that fasting does. So anyone against this idea needs to try it and experience themselves before giving their opinion. Fasting is unhealthy and based on fabricated stories. No, it is not unhealthy. In fact, it has enormous health benefits. Some of them are proven through clinical studies, and the rest we have not even touched upon yet. Some people say fasting is harmful for women. Well, over 2000 years of human history proves that women have been fasting for religious reasons without any harm. Fasting is exempted only for poorly or under certain circumstances. Finally, let's take the scientific evidence in favor of fasting to debunk these myths. First is hormone level during fasting. Insufficient calories are not a major worry, since fat stores are quite ample, but nutrient deficiency is a worry for some if they're not taking healthy diet in the first place. Electrolyte and minerals. The main concern is the development of micronutrient deficiency. However, even prolonged studies of fasting have found no evidence of malnutrition. Potassium levels may decrease slightly, but even 2 months of continuous fasting does not cause significant decrease in potassium levels without supplements. Magnesium, calcium, and phosphorus levels during fasting remain stable, that there are plenty in our bones. Adrenaline. Adrenaline levels are increased so that we have plenty of energy to go get more food. Resting metabolism is not decreased but instead increased. We are effectively feeding our bodies through our own fat. Fat is like stored food. Insulin. Insulin is a hormone made by the pancreas that helps glucose in our blood to enter cells in our muscles, fat, and liver, where it's used for energy. Glucose comes from the food we eat. The liver also makes glucose in times of need, such as when we are fasting. When blood glucose, also blood sugar, called blood sugar levels rise after we eat, our pancreas releases insulin into the blood. Insulin then lowers blood glucose to keep it in the normal range. Insulin resistance is when cells in our muscles, fat, and liver don't respond well to insulin and can't easily take up glucose from our blood. As a result, our pancreas makes more insulin to help glucose enter our cells. As long as our pancreas can make enough insulin to overcome our cells' weak response to insulin, the blood glucose levels will stay in the healthy range. Insulin resistance is currently a major health problem. This may be because of a marked decrease in daily physical activity during recent decades, combined with constant food abundance. All foods raise insulin, so the most effective method of reducing insulin is to avoid all foods. Blood glucose levels remain normal as the body begins to switch over to burning fat for energy. Lowering insulin rids the body of excess salt and water. A regular fasting, in addition to lowering insulin levels, has also been shown to improve insulin sensitivity significantly. This is the missing link in the weight loss puzzle. Insulin is the main driver of both obesity and type 2 diabetes, so the aim should be to reduce the insulin level and not the calories count. If you are wondering if there is a drug available for this, the answer is yes. There are actually two classes of medications that consistently reduce insulin. One reduces by a lot, other by a little. It is not a coincidence that they are the only drugs that consistently reduce weight. But the problem is that they are both expensive and have side effects. For those who are interested to lose weight that need an efficient, effective way to lower insulin rather than depending upon expensive drugs, a diet low in refined carbs and sugar will certainly do the trick for some. But for others, it is not enough. Guess what is the solution? Yes, you are right, it is fasting. Insulin acts on the proximal tubule in the kidney to reabsorb sodium and water. Higher insulin levels will result in salt and water retention. Low insulin level will result in loss of salt and water by the kidney. This is not something recently discovered, but has been well described for over 30 years. Insulin resistance, and type of fat are big topics on their own. that I will cover in separate videos. An interesting fact about fasting. Do you know what the world record in fasting is? A 27-year-old man from Scotland fasted for 382 consecutive days in 1973 under the supervision of a clinician. His weight decreased from 456 pounds to 180 pounds at the end of the fasting period. To sum up, food provides the nutrients needed to grow, and we need both feeding and fasting cycles to grow properly. Not just the feeding and not the fasting. Life lies in the balance of the two. The cycle of life is feast and fast. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, please like, share and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below to let me know what do you think of this video. Thank you.